Hello and welcome to our lesson on ethics in communication. This segment will cover communication with metrics and reports, Part 2. Requirement or specifications changes are extremely taxing on traditional plan-focused projects, which prefer that all requirements are fixed before proceeding. Requirements volatility is the number of new, changed, or dropped requirements or specifications divided by the original number of requirements or specifications. Typically expressed in time or money, total risk exposure is the sum of all individual risk exposures. As the project progresses, this number is expected to peak and eventually decrease as risks occur or the time when they would have occurred passes. Considered by some to be the most important metric, customer satisfaction can be measured in several different ways, most commonly through a quantitative survey given at consistent time intervals. Though measuring is relatively easy, deducing the reasons why changes in customer satisfaction have occurred is much harder. It should be mentioned that the metrics we discussed are general in nature. In many cases, specific organizations or industries will have their own sets of metrics. Status report. Project reports are much more comprehensive than metrics. Care must be taken not to include too much information, which may serve to obfuscate important information. Because this report is so commonly used, its format can vary widely from project to project. Some organizations even have a published preferred format. At minimum, a status report will usually include the following sections: overall health, including accomplishments, completed tasks, and metrics such as customer satisfaction. Schedule and budget status, a realistic view of the expended time and money versus the schedule and budget. Issues, typically expressed as current problems, a proactive project also lists potential issues. Metrics data, to include milestones complete, current actions, planned actions, schedule variance, cost variance, issues, risks, total risk exposure, major changes associated with requirements volatility, clarification, analysis, interpretation where needed. Trend forecasting report. Looking back is important for extrapolating into the future. This type of report interprets data from the project, combines in with other data, including from other projects, attempts to determine if performance is improving, deteriorating, and forecasts into the upcoming time. Elements may include schedule, budget, deliverables. The report may focus on one or many elements of the project, where it's been and where it seems to be heading. Charts or graphs. The goal here should be to allow easier interpretation of data. Be sure that the way the data is presented does not obfuscate the truth behind the numbers. Analysis and statistical information. When forecasting, it's important to include justifications and ranges of probability. Metrics/data to include cycle time, schedule, and cost data utilization, or anything else trending in need of forecasting. Variance reports measure how actual results compare to baselines or how far from the expected number are. It is important to understand that although time flows at a consistent rate, the rate at which a project is expected to complete work or spend capital varies according to the plan that has been laid out. Underspending can be just as serious as overspending as a project proceeds. Just as a doctor might compare a developing child to expected height and weight figures, variance reports attempt to gauge the health of the project by comparing its progress to expected values. Variance reports typically employ tables and graphs. Proactive project leaders include trend of forecasting information as well. Metrics data to include schedule variance, cost variance, clarification, analysis, interpretation where needed. Although this report includes similar information to the reports listed above, the earned value report follows a more specific method. What it tries to ascertain is where the project is in pure earned value cost management terms. The data is always expressed on a little graph which plots planned value against each other. Ideally, the two lines would match perfectly. Space between the two indicates a project that is ahead of or behind schedule. Metrics data to include earned value, planned value. Throughout the project, both the project leader and the team should be continuously asking and answering the question, what information could be useful for future projects? Remember that lessons from successful projects are just as if not more important than those from failed projects. Agile's principle of regular self-reflection prioritizes lessons learned. Metrics data to include project artifacts, documents, analysis, risks anticipated, occurred, customer satisfaction data, milestones and metrics collected through the project. When using metrics and reports, and especially when communicating them to stakeholders, it's important to remember those things. To have benefits of statistically valid metrics, the team must be careful to collect the data consistently and accurately. The way to make reports and metrics are useful is by viewing them from the stakeholder's perspective. Adding a small amount of analysis or clarity can have a huge effect on their value. Taking the time to view things from the stakeholder's perspective is a key success factor in stakeholder expectation management, discussed in the next sections. This is the end of this segment of our lesson. In the next segment, we shall discuss stakeholder expectations management. This course is presented to you by South Europe College. Thank you for listening and see you on our next segment.